Good morning and welcome to Rising. We have a great show for you today. Robby is not back in studio, but he is back virtually. How are you feeling, Robby?
I'm feeling just fine, just taking extra precaution because I care so much about you, Briahna.
Well, I appreciate it mightily. What's on tap today?
All right, we have Lee Harris joining us to discuss some of the nuances behind Biden's Inflation Reduction Act. And then we'll also talk about what black voters are looking for in the midterms with our Rising panel. But first, of course, the big news story of the day, Congresswoman Liz Cheney lost her primary race as expected in Wyoming yesterday to the Trump-backed opponent. Here's Cheney talking about that.
2 years ago, I won this primary with 73% of the vote. I could easily have done the same again. The path was clear. But it would have required that I go along with President Trump's lie about the 2020 election. It would have required that I enable his ongoing efforts to unravel our democratic system and attack the foundations of our republic. That was a path I could not and would not take. We must be very clear-eyed about the threat we face and about what is required to defeat it. I have said since January 6th that I will do whatever it takes to ensure Donald Trump is never again anywhere near the Oval Office, and I mean it.
And then her challenger, Harriet Hageman, who defeated her, had this to say to the people of Wyoming.
Today, Wyoming has spoken. Wyoming has spoken on behalf of everyone all across this great country who believes in the American dream, who believes in liberty, and who recognizes that our natural rights, the freedom of speech, freedom of religion, equal protection, and due process come from God. They do not come from government. And the government cannot take them away. Wyoming has spoken on behalf of everyone who understands that our government is a government of, by, and for the people.
And now upon her loss, Cheney is mulling a run for the White House. Quote, "That's a decision that I'm going to make in the coming months, but it is something I'm thinking about," Cheney told NBC this morning. This comes as Cheney is reportedly trying to flush $7 million from her campaign account. Cheney has already filed a form with the FEC to reorganize her funds to form a PAC called The Great Task, according to Punchbowl. Now, Robby, what do you make of this? Do you think this is anything more than the outcome of Trump's powerful endorsement and the grip that he still has on the Republican Party? Is Cheney, does she have any chance on a national level if that's the case? And is this just a move to, let's say, save face after her loss?
Yeah, she has absolutely no chance at the national level. Well, certainly not in a Republican primary. I mean, I guess she could run, if she ran third party or independent, you know, she would probably siphon off some Republican votes, so that she might actually siphon off just as many Democratic votes. So I don't know how that would work out. Obviously, she would have no shot whatsoever in a national Republican primary. Look, I'm a little bit conflicted about this outcome. Liz Cheney, ideologically, morally, what she stands for are not the values that I supported in the Republican Party. You know, she's a Bush era, very much a national security, war on terror, Iraq war kind of figure, part of a political dynasty that backed those things that are responsible for a lot of policies I think were really, really bad. So on the one hand, I kind of want to root for her downfall, as I'm sure many on the left do. On the other hand, her downfall is not due to a repudiation of any of those policies, but it is only solely because she stood up to Donald Trump. And on that narrow issue of what she was standing up to him on, she's right. So I'm perfectly happy to have her exit the scene, and she represents something that was very bad for the country, I think. But I don't know that that's what's being rejected here.
Yeah, I think that analysis is spot on, which is also why I think it makes her a very attractive prospect to the Democratic Party. Someone who stands up to Trump but doesn't at all challenge the establishment, security, state, foreign policy consensus or any of that. That's exactly how you get a plum spot on MSNBC or at the top of a Democratic ticket, like someone like Michael Bloomberg, who of course had recently been a speaker at a Republican National Convention before he was warmly accepted into the embrace of the Democratic Party as someone who many people saw as, the candidate that was teed up just in case Bernie made it a little bit too far in the primary race.
Well, and it's hilarious to watch the endless rehabilitation of neoconservative figures in mainstream Democratic and even progressive circles. How many former Bush officials, backers and architects of the Iraq War are going to have speaking gigs on MSNBC and CNN and other places. It's just, it makes you wonder what if the Republican Party has another evolution, 10, 20, or 30 years from now, that is somehow very contrary to Trumpism and is a threat, I guess, or something that the liberal establishment hates, will suddenly, Bush officials, not Bush officials, but Trump officials, rather, become the new kind of MSNBC talking heads. It's impossible to imagine, but it would have been impossible to imagine, in the aughts, that people like Nicole Wallace, et cetera, would be mouthpieces for kind of Democratic establishment talking points. It's a wild cycle of punditry that we've undergone.
Mm-hmm. Never underestimate the Democrats.
Never do. Well, speaking of Trump, he took to Truth Social and said, quote, "Congratulations to Harriet Hageman on her great and very decisive win in Wyoming. This is a wonderful result for America and a complete rebuke of the unselect committee of political hacks and thugs. Liz Cheney should be ashamed of herself." Meanwhile, Tulsi Gabbard said, quote, "It appears that Liz Cheney, one of the GOP's chief warmongers, is about to lose. This is good news for every American, regardless of party."
Think Tulsi's being harsh? This clip made its rounds on social media following Cheney's big loss.
Waterboarding, AKA torture.
Well, it's not torture.
But you support waterboarding.
I do. Absolutely.
Right. And I think this has been forgotten, but Liz Cheney, now she's taking this, quote unquote, courageous stand against Trump, but she absolutely let narrow political calculus trump moral or ideological consideration previously. Remember when she turned on her own sister, sister who's a lesbian in a gay relationship, a gay marriage, and it was clear that Dick Cheney, long forever endorsed same-sex marriage, and it seemed pretty clear that Liz Cheney did too. And then when that was kind of an issue during her campaign, she said she was against it, even though she'd clearly been for it. She'd been at the wedding. It's ridiculous to think she was actually against it, but she pretended to be briefly. And then I think her and her sister ultimately reconciled.
Mm-hmm.
But so that was a very clear example of her doing political calculation. So this kind of moral stance thing is a newfound thing for Liz Cheney.
Yeah, the sympathetic read there is maybe she learned from that whole debacle that it wasn't worth throwing your morals and your actual family members over the boat for political gains, but it could also just be that there's something else that's motivating this choice to stand up to Trump in this particular instance. Maybe it will be clarifying to everybody involved if she does continue her political trajectory toward the White House. But there's even another angle to this story. The New York Post is reporting that Mr. Liz Cheney is a partner at the law firm now representing Hunter Biden. Philip Perry, Cheney's husband, has worked at Latham & Watkins, a Democratic powerhouse, since 2007. Another partner at the firm is currently representing Hunter Biden and has been since December of 2020. However, representative for Liz Cheney told the Post that Mr. Perry has no role at all in any matter involving Hunter Biden. So, these firms are large. It's not terribly unusual for people to be working on different things with very different politics and very different capacities, and certainly there are, Chinese walls set up so that people aren't privy to information across the firm. But it is an interesting coincidence and kind of demonstrates, I think, what perhaps the people of Wyoming saw here was that this isn't an establishment candidate, that it is a big club, and they're just simply not a member of it.
Yeah, just another reminder that everyone in Washington knows each other and works together and, is connected from 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon or whatever it is. It's just, it's that utterly disgusting kind of swamp-like characteristics that Trump spoke against, I think, admirably. Now, whether he did anything whatsoever to reduce its swamp-like character is another matter. I did want to, mention quickly, though, I think in the race, so the challenger, Harriet Hageman, has not gotten a lot of. The race is so much about Liz Cheney. It's Liz Cheney versus Trump that the challenger didn't get a lot of. I don't think national attention, or we don't know a lot about her. I did actually interview her once years ago for a totally different story. She's an attorney doing some work with this organization called the New Civil Liberties Alliance that I think does excellent work on fighting COVID restrictions and some Title IX abuses and some other things. And she was representing a client in a Title IX dispute on college campuses. So anyway, my point being that I don't know that I don't know what her views are on Stop the Steal and Trumpism and all that. It might be the case that she has policy views that are far more in line with my own views, or maybe even your views in some ways, Briahna. So it would be interesting to see, and we'll try to get her on the show. But it's always important to remember there's two people, right? It's not there's Liz Cheney lost, someone else won, and it could very well be that the other person, it's not really about Trumpism the way it was shown to be. So
yeah, absolutely.
We'll try to get her on the show. Then before we go, we did want to give an update on a Sarah Palin race. Sarah Palin advanced in her primary for Alaska's at-large congressional district. So that's interesting. Sarah Palin maybe getting recycled back into the mix.
Yeah,
how do you feel about that, Briahna?
What is old is new. We've got Cheney's in the news, Palin's in the news. The Biden family never went away. It's a little deja vu and a little frustrating to feel like we are really controlled by political dynasties. I mean, it's a testament to how important name recognition is above almost anything else in American politics today. Obviously, it didn't save Liz Cheney from actually being defeated this time around. But, her point was that she won her primary before with 70-odd% of the vote, largely, I would argue, because of the name recognition and because of her father's fame, or shall I say infamy. So, yeah, we'll see what happens here. We'll see what the 2022 version of Sarah Palin looks like, and I'll get my old old cup out from when we had our election day party in law school. All of the Obama cups were gone, so I have a Sarah Palin, John McCain cup in my closet right now.
You see the one I'm drinking? My coffee cup today says "Think Positive" from my wife. So that's what's on my mind right now. But we're going to tell you what's on our radars coming up next.